Welcome to All Power to the Developing, a podcast of the Eastside Institute, where social justice, human development, and community building come together. This is where you will meet activists, artists, teachers, scholars, helpers, and healers who are bringing creativity, hope, and possibility to individuals and communities all over the world. To the developing. We're so happy to have you here with us on this podcast today. This is your host, Desiree Wanden, Des for short, and this is a powerful episode of All Power to the Developing. Today's guest has dedicated her life to cultivating spaces and experiences centered around joy, resilience, and community. Through her organization, Joy First, she's made it her mission to help others find purpose and connection in everyday life. Her work is more than a profession. It's a movement that encourages us to see joy as a powerful, transformative force. We can't wait to dive into her story and explore the journey that has brought her here today. We are very, very excited and thrilled to have today on All Power to the Developing, Katie B.
Hi.
What's going on, Katie? How's everything?
Good. How are you?
Doing fine. We just spoke really briefly off of the air, so to speak, if you want to call it that. And you just told me that you came back from Buffalo and went to a comedy museum. Is that right?
I did, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I went to visit the National Comedy Center, which is a new 6-year-old museum of all comedy in Jamestown, New York, along with the Lucy and Desi Museum, where you get to understand Lucy's life, which was full of trauma, and Desi's life, which was full of trauma, and how they grew and created all of what they created with I Love Lucy and all of their movies and everything. And you get to see the beauty of what they created out of their difficult lives.
Sounds like a beautiful experience. In going to the Comedy Museum, we're dealing with comedy, which deals with laughter, right?
Correct.
And
yes.
Laughter, in me exploring your work and me exploring your journey, laughter is something you take very, very much pride in supplying people with joy, laughter. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I want to kind of take it all the way back with you, Katie. Where does this journey for you start? You're a clown, you're a musician, you're a motivational speaker, you wear so many hats. Where does this journey start for you?
Well, it started as a sick kid in Detroit, Michigan, the Detroit area. Actually, in the very beginning, Detroit. And I within 2 months of being born, I had encephalitis from a pertussis vaccine and had an unusual very beginning to life, an unresponsive baby for 2 months, which caused a lot of anxiety in my family. And then as I got older, at 3, I was diagnosed with asthma. At 7, they thought I had thyroid cancer. Turns out I didn't, but I did have to have surgery. So a lot of my upbringing was pretty traumatic and full of limitations. In order to control my asthma, they didn't want me to go outside at night and play like the boys did and the other kids did. And so it really sort of gave me a sense of I'm a limited human being and I've been sick and we have a lot of generational trauma in the family as well. My grandmother killed herself before I was born. And I worked with all of that a lot. But by the time I was in middle school, I was engaged in a group called Youth to Youth, which was co-counseling or peer counseling between kids and anti-drug program. And with that, I ended up learning improv, which was in middle school, which now is a lifestyle for me. And we can talk more about that if you'd like. But also along with that, I ended up in high school on a National Speakers Bureau, Parents Resource Institute for Drug Education. And I toured around the US speaking again with the anti-drug modality and ended up really wanting that to be my life until I sort of got into college and realized that was sort of one very extreme side of life. And and I found that I really just wanted to be an artist. So as I got older in college, like that was more important to me to focus on creativity and being an artist. And by then, the asthma had calmed down, and I was teaching aerobics and very physical, which led into martial arts, which led into rock climbing. And I think because of my growing up and feeling limited, I created a persona. I called her Warrior Girl, and she was unlimited. She was a superhero telling everybody that everyone's an artist, and if you believe in yourself, you too can be a superhero and accomplish your dreams. And that's what my valedictorian speech was about when I graduated from the San Francisco Art Institute in my late 20s. It took a few colleges to get to the right one.
Mm,
And yeah, and then moved to LA, wanted to be a full-time performer, and that felt like it as I look back, it worked, but I felt like it didn't. I had an opportunity to move overseas, and I spent 7 years in Spain, where I became a full-time performer. So I went to circus school in Spain and street performed and toured with different troupes doing stilt walking and clowning and medieval fairs. And I had a human statue, which was like a traumatic human statue. It was a dead lady under a meteorite yelling for help in 14 languages, and no one ever helped her.
wow.
But that actually won awards. And they sent me to Just for Laughs in Montreal. An agent picked me up and toured me all over Spain. And it was improv. I had about 6 phrases in 6 languages memorized, but most of it was improv in Spanish, which was my goal when I started. I want to be able to do improv in Spanish. Well, 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, I practiced and I did it.
Mm,
And then street performing was experimental. When you pass the hat for your living, you
yep.
learn how to read a crowd. You learn how to pay attention of what's working and what's not working. And that really informed me as a performer. And the reason and then, yeah, so then I got married and I married an abusive person. So I joined Cirque du Soleil out there to kind of get away from my abusive person, but that actually didn't work. So
Oh,
in 2007, my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer. I came back, I got divorced, and hit restart. I got through the breast cancer with my mom, and then I was determined to be a full-time performer. So in 2010, I moved to DC and I became the diplomat clown. So I spoke a bunch of languages by then. And so all of the organizations, the consulates and embassies and national organizations of different countries hired me and would fight over me to have me be the clown at their event.
I want to take
And
I want to take a quick pause.
yes.
You first you got introduced into this concept of improv, right? And improv is a lot different than reading the script or this is your part, quote unquote. There's a lot more flexibility and freedom there. So, firstly, what attracted you into that? Like, what were some things that you discovered about improv in your early start of engaging in it that maybe you liked, you disliked, that surprised you, that you started using the tools in your own life? What were some of the things in improv that you discovered at that point?
Um, in a peer counseling situation, right, where kids are helping each other with adult leaders, it really gave us a way to bond very quickly. And it allowed us to put a framework around the things we needed to work on individually and allowed us to play with it. And so it gave us an opportunity to really dive into all the possibilities and play with our lives in characters and playful ways to help find solutions or to just help other kids understand the power of improv. And I'm going to also say that I ended up touring with a group that was teaching creative writing through improv when I came back to the States. And that was amazing because we would come in and show the kids in elementary schools improv, and then we'd leave, and the kids would write stories. And on our way back, we would then perform the best story that the kids had written and play more around improv with them. To me, improv is a lifestyle.
Mhm.
It's a really like be on your feet and be ready to shift to whatever opportunities come your way. And so a yes and, you know, possibility. Like I was an illegal alien in Europe. What was I going to do to make a living? I wanted to stay there.
Yeah.
So a human statue was one of the ways to do that. I was training 5 hours a day in circus school. I didn't want to wear myself out. And I just happened to see a postcard of this big rock with feet sticking out of it. And I said, that's kind of how I feel. Disempowered. I'm illegal. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't think of a good statue. And I said, wait a minute. I'm going to yes and that postcard. So I had a sculptor make me a rock. It was 80 centimeters all the way around. And I experimented until I found the formula that brought money. And then I did that for 2.5 years and found incredible success. So improv is a lifestyle to me now. I feel like it's ingrained in my who I am.
Yeah. And are there tools? Because I know as a performer also, and you said you were a traveling performer, so you performed in the United States, you performed in Europe. That is not an easy thing to do. To go in front of a group of people, people are walking on the streets or they're commuting to wherever they have to commute, and you have to now get their attention. And whether you're singing or whether you're doing art in the physical form, it's about capturing their attention and in the hopes of course getting donations and money, but it's about
Right.
capturing their attention. And I think people see it but they don't understand the true difficult nature of it. Can you speak a little bit to that and how that kind of aided your development in this creative world that you were in?
Absolutely. When I was sort of finished with the human statue and I was really on my own in the streets and it was time to go out and take a risk and figure out what I could do on my own. I would put together different costumes and then just go out and try things. And I had a great mentor who was somebody who had been working in the streets in Barcelona for decades. And so we would try things and then we would process and debrief what worked, what didn't work. And it really helped me understand how to read my audience and how to make more out of a situation than you don't have if you're not willing to take those risks. So, how do you approach your audience, right? You, I mean, there were sitting ducks, we used to call them. Those are people sitting in cafe, outside on the sidewalk, and they were ripe for the street performers to come and perform in front of. And so I started with the people with the cafes. And so, for an example, one act I had was a zombie looking for a husband. So I would approach with an urn and take risks. I had sand in the urn that would drop into somebody's lap. And the good thing, it was Europe, so they were very open, right? To whatever happens.
Yeah.
Well, I get a laugh from the urn opening up on somebody, and that would open the door. Because the first thing you wanted to do was get attention and not be intrusive and not be rude, right? And so once I knew I had people's attention, I was able to then continue with approaching passersby because that act was all about approaching the strangers passing by and see what I could get them to do. Their job was to carry me across an imaginary threshold and have another person passing by throw rice at us or whatever, something bird friendly. And and so I would take all the risks and until I got the result that I wanted. And I think that right there is a hugely important lesson to not give up, keep trying, take some risks, and eventually, as we shift and pivot, we get the result we want.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you say that the risk, I think that's one of the things that really comes up, and we're gonna speak about that later when we speak about talking with strangers. Just the risk sometimes in a lot of these things, whether it's sitting next to someone on the train that's an empty seat, it's taking a
That's
risk.
right.
Um, Maybe saying you like that person's shirt at the grocery store. All of these things are risk, and you said that a lot in some of the things that you were speaking about, some of the experience you were speaking about taking the risk in order to kind of get to that destination that you want to get to.
Yes. I've certainly taken a lot of risks in my life.
Yeah.
I am not risk averse. I am yes and pro yes and. And that means that when I see an opportunity, I try it out. I take it. Sometimes I make mistakes, but it's all a learning experience. And when I look back at my life, I don't have a life that most people had. And when I start talking with people, a lot of them are like, when are you writing your book? You know,
Yeah.
because it really is a journey of yes and. And if it's okay, I'll share another yes and story.
Sure.
I was touring with this Brainstormers, which was the creative writing group. And I'm sitting in the van. We're about to leave to go on tour in the Midwest. And I get a phone call. And another friend from another troupe years before called and said, I know you went to circus school, but and it's not the Super Bowl, it's this other thing. Uh, can you do bungee? And I said, yes, I took one class. I can do bungee. So we started talking, and a month later, I'm in Hawaii performing behind Enrique Iglesias with a bungee act with a friend that I
Mm,
knew had the same skills that I did. We built the rig together, we designed the show together, and we went to Hawaii together and we did it. And if I had said, I don't know, I'm
yeah.
not sure, my first reaction was yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll figure it out,
Hmm. Hmm.
and figuring it out is one of the biggest lessons we have to learn in life.
Mm.
First, you say yes, and then you figure it out.
And are there things within improv that give people those tools? I think for the average person, taking risk is very tough.
That's right.
Um, just saying yes to something, Um, something I've been thinking about lately is kind of knowing what you want, because there may come the day when someone asks you
Mm-hmm.
and wants to make that wish happen. And what if you can't say it, or what if you don't know it, or what if you're scared to say what you want? And what you just said there about just kind of taking that risk, that leap of faith, and knowing this is where you want to be, but you may not have the skills, you may not have the tools, you may not have the exact know-how, but that's where you want to be. That's the destination. So go for it. And I think that's very admirable, but at the same time, it could be very anxiety producing too.
Look, life is scary. Life is scary. And if we don't figure out how to manage that fear and absorb that as well and feel it, we're going to miss out on a lot. Sometimes I get really scared. I'll admit it. You know, I get scared. I doubt myself. I don't know, and I've lived this really weird life and certainly not in any normal sort of framework that you can imagine, but I've no regrets. I have no regrets because every mistake has brought me to a new place. And the act of reinventing myself as many times as I have has given me skills that most people don't have. And so I want to say, be afraid
Yeah.
and do it anyway. And in the humor world where I also live, along with Social Therapy and Eastside Institute, there's a phrase called planned spontaneity. And so with that planned spontaneity, it's like you have a sort of a joke in your back pocket for ready for whatever. And we'll talk about that more later with Joy First. Um, but it's about having that yes ready and be afraid and do it anyway.
Yeah. I hope you're listening out there. Very, very great advice from Joyce First, Katie. Speaking of Joy First, you are the founder of Joy First.
Yes, I'm the founder of Joy First Foundation.
Joy First Foundation. How did Joy First Foundation come to be? What was going on with you? You kind of shared a little bit of your journey and I guess all the things that you kind of love and the tools that you have in your tool belt, your mighty tool belt, awesome tool belt. But how did you come to create the Joy First Foundation?
Right. So during COVID, I was still clowning, and my father had passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS, which was a long journey with him too. And I was working at a job that was unfulfilling, and I had started to live in a trailer and camp host in Death Valley. And I noticed the political rift. I noticed the division between people was it was obvious, right? And people were fighting over whether or not to wear a mask, and it became political, and it was just so much. And my heart was breaking a little bit. Then the Ukrainian war started, and I was invited to create in the Global Play Brigade style emotional support sessions with a group, an international group called Voices of Peace, where we created emotional support sessions on Zoom for Ukrainian refugees. And so my modalities were laughter yoga, meditation, and improv. And we offered this to whoever would come. And then after the fact, counseling would be offered that people could reach out to. But this was to shift the mindset, get us into a better endorphin brain, happier brain before to help just get people out of the current situation and get present in a different way. And we had a meeting one day, and somebody said, we need to start an NGO. And I said, well, my meditation this morning, all I could hear was joy first, joy first, joy first. And I said, that's the name. And so that was July 2021. And so I went ahead and started moving toward a nonprofit in the US. And that's where we are today.
And can you speak a little bit about the mission statement and maybe some of the people you either work with or have working with you?
So the mission is to provide opportunities to experience the best moments of life through immersive educational activities and content. We help reimagine living and human development toward a more joyful life experience. And I'm going to add to that that the purpose is to explore, create, and bring joy to all living beings. And ask me your question again.
I actually think you answered it, but
Okay.
off of what you just read, it made me ask a question because you said you want to bring joy to all human beings. In your view, or in your experience, what would you say is the difference between happiness and joy? Or
Right. So
is there a difference?
there is a
Some people may
difference.
view it as just one emotion and one thing. And I had that great burger last night and I feel happy. And then today I don't know what's going on. So
Right.
can you speak a little about that?
Yes. So I do work a lot with positive psychology, Martin Seligman's work, and other people that talk about happiness. Joy is delight. In the dictionary definition, the best word for it is delight. It can be a surprise and it can also be recreated. So say you're walking and you see a rainbow and you have a moment of awe. Well, that moment of awe creates the same brain chemicals as happiness and delight. But while you're watching that rainbow and you're in the awe, one way to be able to recall delight or joy is to spend 20 seconds savoring it. So you focus on the moment, you look around and you say, wait a minute, get present. There's this beautiful rainbow and I'm having these feelings. And look at the green trees and the rain over there and you take a second, 20 seconds will set that into your brain and allow you to recall it later. Happiness is what we get from the endorphin, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin that come from a happy experience or that we can create through laughter and through movement activities and things like that. So they're similar, but they're also different because we can create happiness and we can create joy. I believe joy also comes from the human connection, that we can give joy and receive joy at the same time by creating spontaneous moments. And we'll get into that more later. But when you ask, like, who am I working with? I have worked with the East Institute and the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor on the Tour of Joy, which I toured for almost 3 years, living in a van and a trailer. And what I would do is stop at someone's house and bring them along with me to experience these moments of joy and get to embody it so that they too can then create that with other people. And people tend to do it in their own way. They don't repeat my formula, they find their own formula and then reflect back to me not only what did they experience in the moment, but also what they're experiencing since then, because they can recall it and recreate it.
And if you could share some of those, like what are some people getting in that moment, and then what are they taking with them to kind of hold them down in the foreseeable future?
So, yeah, when I first started, right, this was an experiment. The first thing I wanted to do with Joy First was thank the grocery workers and thank the caretakers and the people who were in the forefront and front lines of COVID. Grocery workers were treated terribly by
Mm-hmm.
customers and they never left their job. That's huge. The strength they had to stay there as an essential worker versus another choice. And nurses, for example, they didn't get unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
They were in there. I was, one person mentioned her hot flashes in all of that protective gear and that she couldn't take it off. She had to just withstand whatever discomfort she was going through in the moment. And she deserved a thank you, right? So I stopped at a friend's house. He had no idea what I was doing. And this was somebody I knew years ago in Spain. And I said, I'm interested in this experiment. Are you willing? And he said, sure, I'm willing. So he would take me around his local area. And the first person we found was a bartender at this outdoor bar place. And we started just chatting with her. And it turned out she's caretaking her veteran dad, which was why she was in the location she was in. And she talked about how difficult it was at times, that she wasn't living where she wanted to live, and she had made sacrifices for him to support him. So immediately we grabbed kazoos and noses, excuse me, and gave her a big thank you. And we watched her face change. And not only did her face change, but anyone who witnessed it and my friend. And by the end of that few minutes, this woman named Angel, I'll never forget her, we were going to take a picture, a little video of us together, and she had to find the perfect background. And she became incredibly engaged in finding the way to document what we had just done. And then my friend Jason and I went and debriefed. And he said, wow, I can't believe it. I felt it. She felt it. Her face changed. Her attitude changed. This is a big deal. And he wanted then, after we spent a few days together doing this, he's a gardener. He wanted to go and teach kids the joy of gardening in his way. And he was super inspired. And that happens every time.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I think appreciation, appreciation is something that's very key. And
There's 4 words actually.
okay, add 3 more.
Appreciation, appreciation, recognition, acknowledgement, and gratitude. Because everywhere I've gone, people are not acknowledging their employees for showing up. They are not recognizing their employees for sticking around. And they're not thanking their employees in any way. Just that.
Yeah.
We're doing that. And that takes people out of their mundane rumination and the daily grind. And I call it a crack in the door. It just shows this opportunity that you can lift someone up so easily because they're not getting it in their daily life.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, so much there. We're going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue on this positive journey with Katie B. A lot more great information is going to come after this commercial break, and we're going to speak a little bit about talking with strangers. As we go into this more technologically savvy world, a lot of other things seem to fade away. So we're going to talk about how we want to bring that back, how we want to bring back the human connection on All Power to the Developing right after this commercial break.
Hi, I'm Melissa Meyer, Associate Director of the U.S.A. Institute. Welcome to All Power to the Developing. I hope you're enjoying today's conversation. In each episode, we introduce you to some amazing performance activists, play revolutionaries, and developmentalists from around the world who talk to us about their creative grassroots efforts to build a better world. If you like what you hear, please follow and share the series. You can find us on Amazon, Spotify, and Podbean. We'd love to hear your comments and ideas. Like everything at the Institute, the growth of All Power to the Developing depends upon the people who create it and benefit from it. We hope you're one of them. Thanks for your support, and now back to our conversation.
We are back on All Power to the Developing with our guest today from Joy First Foundation, Katie B. Prior to the commercial break, one of the key things you were speaking about is the human connection. The human connection is extremely powerful. It's something you've given several examples, whether it's the people that you've met and trained with, whether it's some of the travelers that you engage with, the peer group you're a part of, all a part of the human connection. We are now in 2024. Everyone has a cell phone. People are more going to apps and different ways, modalities of communicating. Now there's AI and there's bots and there's all different types of things going on. And a lot of that, or a lot of the fears people have, is that removes us from the human connection. And I think you could kind of put that in conjunction with, I think, some of the ordinary things that human beings feel, right? We feel shame, uncertainty, right? We may be in a, like I said, we may be in a grocery store and someone has a shirt you like, and you want to say nice shirt, but you're like, do I say that? Will this person like me? Will they reject me? Will do I have to keep talking after they say thank you? We go into this whole thought process, and I think that's something that you spoke greatly about in the workshop that you did for the Eastside Institute called "Talking with Strangers." So I want to kind of get into all of that. That's I think, a very complex subject matter, and through all of your work and all the travels you do and all the work you do, you're kind of forced to speak with strangers, you know.
Yeah,
And I think for the average person too, if we want to be successful, if we want to kind of take things quote unquote to the next level, we gotta speak to strangers, to meet people, to make connections, to network, to build. So maybe there's no question there, but can you speak a little bit about that journey of talking with strangers?
absolutely. Listen, I'm going to share. I just traveled, right, by plane after our election. And I know I have my finger on the pulse of people's fear of things that have happened, text messages and things that are have targeted people. And I was feeling a little uncertain about what I was going to see in an airport. And so I was prepared with my little cards that say thanks for being on Earth today and my little 3D printed joys that I give to random strangers all the time. And I wanted to see what it was going to be like to be in an airport this weekend. So I watched and I observed, and it was all incredibly peaceful. There was nothing out of the ordinary happening. But I made sure that every airport worker that I came into contact with, that gave them gratitude. I told them they were awesome. I thanked them for simply being alive today. And a thing about Joy First is we don't get into politics. This is meant to be everyone. I don't care what side you're on or what, if there's four sides, let's say. I don't care what side you're on. You're human. That's where we start. So I'd get on the plane, and the first steward person that I would see, I would say, thank you for being here, and thanks just for being alive. And I just really appreciate you. And people exhale. That's the first thing they do is they go, oh, thank you. I needed that because it's not happening. And I know what can happen on a flight, that you can have unruly customers and things like that. And on the way back, for example, we got deplaned. We had a mechanical issue, got deplaned. We had to go to another plane. It made us a couple of hours delayed on the way back. And I made sure that I spent time chatting up, not just chatting with, but chatting up every single person working that I came in contact with. And especially because of some of the things happening right now, certain demographics of people I made extra efforts with to make sure that people felt safe and comfortable and had a moment where that stuff didn't exist. And it was very successful. And and there's a lot happening right now, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and we are all scared.
Mhm.
We are all scared because we just don't know where this is going. But if we just focus on the fact that, in my belief, we're all made of the same space dust. You know, there are powers that be that want to manipulate our thinking, and this is the tool to break through that without technology. It does happen online. I do it online too.
Mhm. Mhm.
But face to face, one of the things I mentioned in the workshop is that um, I think because of some of my upbringing and my trauma and my family dynamics and all of that, I'm very aware of body. What am I trying to say? So like reading body language and facial expression. And so I remember the moment I was talking to someone and giving them a joyful moment, and this corner of their eye changed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a door opened. And all of a sudden, I had this amazing connection happening. And I didn't know I had that power to see that little tiny shift in someone's face to then, and that, but here's the thing, there's a lot happening here. Heart-brain coherence, for example. One of the keys of happiness is when our brain waves are in sync with our heartbeat. And when we're happy, science is showing us that that's happening. And so we also have magnetic energy 3 feet beyond our body. And so one of the things I've seen with Joy First is you can feel it when you are face to face with someone and those hearts, that 3 feet mesh and you have a heart connection. And then you see the happiness, and now you know you have a brain and a heart connection. You both have heart-brain coherence, and you are both having a moment of happiness and joy. It's incredibly fascinating.
Yeah. What are some steps that people could take to kind of move in that direction of talking with strangers, beginning to maybe express some of their thoughts, you know, journal maybe? What are some of those steps that people throughout this podcast? I've heard you mention so many things, from the athletic things you were doing, the martial arts, the rock climbing. I've heard you say meditation. Then you have your clowning work. But what are some things for, the average person, not too versed in all of this, maybe not too familiar with improv? Maybe improv makes them nervous, right, to break away from that script. They're just used to going to work, coming home, dealing with their family and watching their program and calling it a night. What are some steps or some things that they could start doing to maybe get them to start loosening up a little bit in this way?
Yeah, so there are science studies happening all the time. One thing that I learned a couple of years ago was if you laugh in the first 10 minutes of your day, that can last up to 8 hours. You get those endorphins. So I usually start my morning ritual is getting a laugh and then meditating on gratitude. And the best thing you can possibly do is just be grateful that you woke up. Be grateful that your lungs work. Be grateful that your feet work, if they do. And if it's not your feet, maybe it's your finger. What you have to be grateful for is the best place to start.
Gratitude.
It brings the chemicals. Being happy is a chemical process. And I've struggled with depression, but the way that I can overcome it is by focusing on gratitude. And we've seen that gratitude can help with suicide ideation, that getting present and being aware of what to be thankful for can shift you out of those mindsets and fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be grateful that the sun came up today. It's so simple. It doesn't even have to be that someone gave you something or anything. If the sun came up today and you woke up, you can find gratitude in that. And so Insight Timer is a great meditation tool. It's one that I use every day. There's also YouTube meditations. I've studied Zen. I've chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Uh, I've studied multiple. I'm trained in transcendental meditation. This point in my life, I like guided gratitude meditation to start my day because it really gets me there.
Yeah. Guided meditation, everyone. Thank you for being on the podcast. Firstly, I just want to say that, show some gratitude there.
Thank you.
throughout this whole kind of experience, you really shared your journey and your ups and downs. And one thing that I really got is you built all of this with a lot of resiliency. You
Hmm.
know, you spoke about trauma and of course traveling all around the world and performing to get money and being uncertain about that. That's a big thing. So there's a lot of resiliency in that. And I think in taking risk, that's one of the things that you've really built up resiliency. What kind of course, resiliency is built through experience, but through your resilience, what kind of advice can you kind of push out to the world in the theme of everything that we're speaking about in Joy First Foundation? I think
Res
resilience
Go
is
ahead.
something that's very tough. Um, like you said, you shared about your father, you shared about the family. I'm going through things with my mother. People go through things with their family, and one thing I want to tie back. One of our previous episodes, we were very gracious to have Malia Gilbert Neal from Artwell in Philadelphia. I had the opportunity to take her workshop in
Mm.
in Washington D.C. at an arts convention, and you said something when you spoke about the woman with her father a lot, and this is what Malia was speaking to. Malia was speaking to. I'm sorry. We're not viewed. People don't see all of us, right? They see you. They see me. We see each other, but you don't know if someone's going through depression or if they hurt their back or if they're taking care of all of their siblings or if their car broke down yesterday or if they're just having a terrible day. We only see what the person presents us, and I think that is a lot of the complexity in some of your work, right? Getting people to show more than what and be appreciated more to what they're just showing or what people just want to people think they are, right? So we think those workers are just there to pack our bags, to take our items, but they're human beings and they are more than what they are presented as. But it's just in which the system we live in, this is kind of how we exist, right? Kind of just approach everyone on a surface level, unless I guess we need more from them. So I'm just mentioning all of that because this is kind of some of what you spoke about too, being heard in a different way, being seen in different ways.
Yeah, so I'm currently testing positive on every autism and ADHD test that I have taken, which frames the fact that I grew up and have spent most of my life feeling less than everyone else, which is really intense. And I want to share that giving joyful moments is actually something I need. So the reciprocity of giving joy and appreciation is it's totally reciprocal. When you give, you get. And in that, every single person that you interact with is going through something. Every single person. And understanding that only through, I mean, I think I knew it on some level, but I have experienced it with every single, in like 6,000 joyful moments, I think at this point. So my best example is a young man. I was in St. Louis and I was in Walmart, and my purpose was to give joyful moments to every employee I came in contact with. This guy showed me a joyful, uplifted personality when I approached him in the electronics department. And just, I get the urge. To me, it's an urge. It's like a gut feeling to go approach this person. And so I approached, I thought nothing of it. I just went forward with the standing ovation and the gratitude, and he started to cry. And he asked me to turn the camera off. So I did, because we were recording and we had permission to record and post. And I said, "What's happening with you?" And he said, "I'm working this job because my mom is homeless, and I have another job too. and I am trying really hard to keep her out of homelessness. And it's really difficult. And I couldn't solve his problem, but I could let him know, I see you. I see the effort you're making, and I give you recognition and acknowledgement for making those efforts. And I remind him how much he matters because of the impact he's not only having at work, but with his mother and anyone who comes in contact with his mother. If we think about the fact that the ripple that this was also another thing from the very beginning, these moments of gratitude to strangers, whether you're liking the sweatshirt they're wearing or the color of their eyes or something they have control over or not, right? Creates a ripple where you've now lifted someone up, and it's quite likely that the next person they come into contact with, they're going to lift up and not put down. So it's so big. Like, I give a joyful moment, I get a joyful moment. And then I'm more motivated to go do more, and they're more motivated to go be kinder to the person next to them. And kindness is scientifically showing, and I'm experimenting with a small town right now to see how much I can prove. Kindness can have an effect on bullies, and gratitude can have an effect on suicide ideation. And if we could just be a little more kind and grateful, we could really, we do. It's not even a could. I'm seeing it firsthand. We are making a difference to everyone in front of us by making an effort to give so that we can also receive.
Sounds like joy pollination to me.
Exactly.
It's going everywhere. Thank you so much, Katie. Lastly, the name of this podcast is All Power to the Developing, because we want to give all power to those who are developing and who are helping others to develop. When you hear the title of that podcast, what comes to mind for you?
Well, we are all developing, right? Whether it's good or bad. I mean, we are all developing. We develop based on our core beliefs. We develop based on our interactions with others and what we are able to do to grow ourselves. And all power to growing forward and becoming better people that interact with us and that we interact in a conscious, intentional, human way.
Yes. Katie, for people that would like to stay in contact with you, reach out to you, watch some of your lovely content on YouTube. I've been watching some of your videos and subscribed. How could they keep in touch with you? How could they kind of keep this journey with you?
So I'm a joy activation coach, and you can reach out to me at info at joyfirst.org. The website is joyfirst.org for the Joy First Foundation. I am on YouTube with Joy First Foundation and TikTok, and on YouTube as KDB Joy Activation. I have a channel with that, and I'm all over the internet. If you search KDB Joy, you can find the lyrics that I write that are meant to be uplifting. The latest album is called You Matter, and it's really feel-good music. It's something you can say to yourself, something you can share with others, and just to help somebody have a better day.
Yes. You heard it all there. It's going to be in the description section for you also. Thank you so much, Katie B, for being on this episode of All Power to the Developing. We love you, and we hope that this message goes out to the people, and we hope that they love you back, and we continue this joy pollination. All Power to the Developing is available on all major platforms and digital streaming platforms. We would love for you to subscribe, like, comment. Please let us know what you love about the episode. You can write to us at podcast@eastsideinstitute.org. I repeat, that is podcast@eastsideinstitute.org. and write to us. Let us know what you liked about the episode. We would love to read your response at the end of an episode. Thank you so much for listening to All Power to the Developing. Thank you so much for supporting All Power to the Developing. And until the next time, this is goodbye, and we'll see you on the next episode. All Power to the Developing. This is your host, Des, and it's been real. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you. Love you, Des.
All Power to the Developing was made possible in part by Growing Social Therapeutics, the Baylor Wolf Fund.